are going to spend the next 45 minutes with this fantastic panel talking about the evolving role of the CIO and how it's changing in a world that seems to be changing faster and faster. I'm not sure that it actually is changing faster than ever before, but we feel like it is, and that's good enough for me. So my name is Steve Rosenbush. I am the bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal's Pro Enterprise Technology team. And we report on the interplay of business and technology. So I have a great interest in what you do. It's really a great pleasure and a privilege to be here, so I appreciate that. I always learn a lot at these events, especially when we have such an experienced and interesting group of panelists. I am going to actually read everyone's title because everyone's title seems to become more and more intricate and complex over the last few years. And I don't want to blow it. We'll talk about that in a minute, because that's sort of central to what we're going to do.
You can't mess with the CIO title, can you?
Well, apparently you can. Over and over again, it's not the same title and it's not the same job. Sitting to my extreme left, your right, Subhadaa Reddimasi, who is the chief architect in the technology chief operating office at Wells Fargo. Welcome.
Thank you. You did very well.
Just getting started.
Just
that is an absolute requirement for a job in journalism. You must be able to read. All right, and in the center, Shamim Mohammad, Executive Vice President and Chief Information and Technical Officer at Carmax. And to my left, Mojgan Lefebvre, Executive Vice President and Chief Technology and Operations Officer at Travelers. So welcome, everyone. I learned this morning, while we were getting together and preparing one last time for this event, that Shamim and Mojgan actually met at a conference at this particular site in 2007, where they participated on a panel about the future of the CIO, and I'm sure it was about how it was changing faster than ever in a fast-changing world. So I thought that would be a great place to start. Let's wind it back all the way to 2007. What were CIOs talking about in 2007, and how has it changed? Mojgan, why don't we start?
Yeah, sure. The specific topic we were focused on, actually, I'd say it probably is still the case, was how do we bring more women into the field of IT, where, unfortunately, despite the fact that we're 50% of the population, there's only 25% or so of women in STEM, so to speak. And it was about the fact that, right when women are having children, that coincides when you're getting the promotions and so on. And I'd say, the world hasn't necessarily changed, so we've got to make sure that we make a dent in that, Shamim, so that in the next 17 years when we come back, we're not talking about the same thing.
Yeah, and we have similar interests, because I have two girls and Mojgan has two girls, so we're interested that girls and women get into technology. But that is one thing hasn't changed at all. But the one thing that is changing drastically is CIO's role in the enterprise, company-wide leadership and transformation. At that time, we talked about relationship and partnership and why CIOs need to have a seat at the table, those kind of things. But what's become much more evident today, 17 years later, is that CIOs need to be that business leader, driving business change and business transformation.
Great. Well, so that brings us up to the future. I'm curious, Subhadaa, you've spoken with me a little bit about this idea of all the tools and leadership approaches that you as a technology leader have employed over the last number of years, and how that's become more and more important to the business itself. And as those tools and approaches have become more important to the business itself, the role of the CIO, or in your case, the architect, the technology leader, has also changed. So one, is that true? And if it's true, in your own experience, how is your role in the company, your role in the business, whether it's Wells Fargo or previous role, how has that evolved?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I think the role has definitely evolved to the point that Shamim was making, and an earlier panel that I was listening to. The role of the CIO has gone from that expert in technology and just being that person who is going to support whatever business strategy is going to be out there, to that T-shaped CIO, right? The notion of I'm going to be that person who can bring the risk perspective to the table. I'm going to bring the cyber perspective to the table. I'm going to bring the notion of being able to be that change agent that is bringing the technology view on how can you innovate in the business using technology, and having that ability to really not just be another seat at the table, but going to be part of that operating committee driving the business strategy in a unique way and using technology as a propeller and influencing that strategy, right? So that's, I think, a huge change that we've seen over the last last decade especially, I would say. And then as a chief architect, my role has also evolved simultaneously, right? Because you're not anymore thinking about, what new product I'm going to bring in to actually solve for this problem. I'm starting to think about, what are the technologies out there, not just which are used in banking, because now I've been in banking all my life, but looking at some of the other fields and how they have innovated and bringing that kind of storyline into banking, and helping your business think differently than they have ever thought of things, right? And that's the big ability to drive the business strategy and use technology as a way to do it.
Mojgan, how is your experience tracked?
Yeah, I think as the CIO, you have this unique ability to be at the intersection of anything and everything that's happening, whether it's operational or strategic, within every single one of the functions or business units. So if you take advantage of that and really understand the business, then again, the opportunity to not only enable, because it's true, like up until now we were enablers, it's like drive the strategy along with the rest of your peers in the enterprise. And so for me, having the privilege of also running our business operations, so everything from I'm working for an insurance company, everything from when a customer wants to get a quote all the way to getting their policy and then getting serviced by the insurance company. Like all of those are things that I see, and so we can really, there's technology in every single step of the way.
So this is really all three of you, but maybe we'll direct this first to Shamim. It's well known that the IT leader, the software developer, the technological person has this tool set of agile approaches that help speed up decision making, speed up process. That started in technology. Has that expanded to the rest of the business?
Yeah, the agile, in my mind, is a way to deliver things. So it started in technology, and we're delivering technology products and services faster. I think the real revolution that happened is when the agile mindset became more of a product mindset. And the difference there is agile, you deliver technology. Product mindset is you're delivering services and products and capabilities that your customers or users love and enjoy. A true differentiation. So from my perspective, a company just adopting agile methodology is not going to be agile and be successful, because they're just going to deliver probably wrong thing faster. It's really being the product mindset, business outcome driven, is where the company can differentiate and be very successful, and that's what's needed. And the CIOs are in perfect position to champion and organize their companies to drive product mindset.
If you had that discussion internally with the tech team, it would have made a lot of sense. Is that language now shared throughout the rest of the corporation?
Absolutely, and this is what I think one of the key responsibility a CIO or head of technology has is building that partnership with other key leaders. In our case at Carmax, when I became the CIO back in 2014, My first thing was not go deploy Agile in the whole company or do product mindset. Really build partnership with the CMO and the CEO, two key stakeholders. Only after I felt like they're comfortable with the journey they were about to take, then I started the journey. Because if they didn't come on board, I was like, don't even try it. Take another year to build a relationship. So now, if you look at Carmax as a company over the last 7-8 years, everything we do pretty much is we do that product mindset. And it's no longer just the IT or mindset or IT work. It's a company-wide, with a focus on making our company more agile and more nimble versus technology just doing cool things.
Yeah, if I might add to that, right, the way many companies have evolved, I mean, the companies had different journeys towards agility, right? And when I think about some of the larger firms, I think it really started with the notion of how do I do tech better, right? And then we started asking the broader question of why do we want to be agile, right? What is the purpose of us being agile? And that's when the business outcome conversation comes. The fact that we really want to be quick from idea to market, the fact that we are really focused on our customers and how we want to think about delivering newer capabilities to our customers and frequently, right? And when you start asking those questions, then you very quickly start having the same language and same taxonomy that you're having conversations with your business partners, and you bring them to the table. But again, previous panel was talking a little bit about this, right? The snowball effect. How do you know Agile is going to be successful in an organization? So you got to start somewhere and start proving out that to say, oh, I'm going to start with this small thing that in the small corner where I'm going to innovate, I'm going to learn the practice, I'm going to make it the muscle memory of the organization, and then I have these few pioneers then giving me a snowball effect in the organization, and then I can have the business partner so that I can create the right necessary organizing structures to make it successful in the organization.
So in our case, I actually convinced our CEO to take us on a road trip to Boston and then to Amsterdam, where there were several companies that we were visiting who transformed themselves based on the product mindset, but Spotify's product mindset, so to speak. Again, how do you become a platform organization where you continuously are just changing and evolving what you deliver, and your customers are eating it up, and just, it's the best customer journey that you could imagine. So coming out of what then became for us Project Amsterdam, there was just such excitement in our business leaders. So we had all of the presidents, our chief claim officer and financial officer all on those trips. And so coming back, we all held hands and said, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to drive business outcomes, and let's pick one area. And we picked our business insurance, which is our commercial business. And Greg, the president of that group, and myself, we sponsored the change. And so it's everything from, I would say, probably first and foremost mindset and culture and thinking, to ensuring that you're customer centric, and then of course the operating model of setting up the cross-functional smaller teams, I guess, as Bezos calls it, 2 pizza teams, and really continuing to evolve. And I think that's a continuous journey. You continue to get better and better, but that's how it came to be.
One thing that Mojgan brought up, I just want to add one more piece to it. It's really one of the best thing we CIOs can do, or head of technology can do, is really helping our business partners understand what's possible, right, without a possibility. So what you're talking about is taking them to the safari. We did something similar like a digital safari, where we took people to like Silicon Valley, other places, because until we did that, I don't think my peers had a full understanding of what's possible. So then they become the biggest supporter, because now, like, how come we don't have some of this capability? And then it becomes sort of a snowball effect, and we continue to do more and more.
So this goes back to the very, very first point that I made during the introductions, which is that each of you have ended up with compound roles, compound titles, because you've become more important, in a sense, to the business, and you've taken on more responsibility, your portfolio is larger. And you'd think after all the change that came with cloud computing, and then all the change that came with the pandemic, maybe that we'd reached some sort of threshold, how much faster could we want to get? And then in late November, ChatGPT hit, and it seems to have just accelerated and accelerated and accelerated. Do you share that same perception?
Absolutely. I mean, and I know there was a lot of controversy on your panel around, I feel there's something different because whether it's the CEO Business Roundtable or the Chief Investment Officer that's on CNBC, or any one of us, or at a party, or everybody's talking about it. And I think just the fact, again, I think when you see something and can experience it, that's like the most powerful. And when 100 million people, everybody's kind of playing around with ChatGPT and they see, they're like, oh my God, this AI thing is actually real and it's gonna have an impact. And so, what do we think about it? What's the impact on talent? What's the impact on our business?
So just maybe a quick show of hands or indication on the panel. Are all three of your companies either experimenting with generative AI or actually deploying generative AI?
Yes.
Experimenting for sure.
What about the audience? Are your companies working with AI, generative AI, ChatGPT? So everybody is. And by the way, we'll take questions at the end, but if anyone has a question in the meantime, just feel free to ask it. So why don't you just quickly tell us, in this case we can just walk down the line, start with Subhadaa. How is Wells Fargo thinking about this technology? How is Carmax thinking about it? How is Travelers thinking about it? And then let's talk about, not just what that means in terms of product and functionality, but how does that actually change the way the business works?
I think AI has been in the industry for a little bit now, right? So it's not new from that sense, but the generative AI space is quite revolutionary, but at the same point of time comes with its own set of challenges. And being in a very regulatory environment, I think it is prudent to say that it is important also to be responsible about how you are implementing and bringing that to bear, right? And what I mean by that is there's a humane aspect to everything that we do, and the end customer, when they, when we were talking about this before as well, when they walk up to to a branch or an ATM or a car loan is being processed, there is an expectation and a diligence that we have towards our customers. So I think the big thing that I would say for us from an experimentation standpoint is to understand that humane aspect of it and being able to implement that in a responsible fashion.
Where would you implement it first?
I think there's a bunch of experiments that we are running right now. I think there is potentials in the context of making sure that we are influencing the end customer experience, whether it is your communication with the customers, whether it is a chatbot kind of a conversation.
Synthesizing
There's a lot of options, I would say, but at the same point of time, I think we are a company who is very, I would say, deliberate and very methodical in the way how we want to be responsible about it. So I think that comes first for us.
Yeah, so for Carmax, we've been using machine learning and AI for a while actually. The generative AI, it became very popular recently, but we've actually been using it for like year and a half. So much so that even, I'm not going to mention the name of the company, you're aware, Steve, they were actually surprised that there's actually real business case of using OpenAI, ChatGPT, that being put out there that's very meaningful and has a pretty big business impact. So the way we've been using for last year and a half, the ChatGPT is really around customer reviews. Because we have tens of thousands of cars and every car is unique. And every car has different reviews and feedback and features, which is humanly impossible to create for every customer. So what we've done is we're using ChatGPT to look at the content that's available, then organize in a way that makes sense, and with some guidance and guideline, those kinds of stuff, so make sure it's accurate, and then we're making it available to our customers. So it had a huge impact on our customer experience, and then it also allowed us to provide meaningful information that our customers are looking for.
In both cases, it's about synthesizing information that you share with customers.
Absolutely.
Mojgan, is that
Can I ask, are you synthesizing expert information from Consumer Reports and Edmunds and those folks, or is it just anybody who's ever written a review on that automobile?
It's so we own Edmunds, by the way. So Carmax purchased Edmunds a couple of years ago. But yeah, we look at data from all the sources. Then we have our content writers. They can review it before it gets published. But there's still the guidelines and checks and controls in place. In this example, if we had to hire content writer to create all the reviews, it would have taken us probably 10 plus years. Hundreds of content writers, we're doing it in a matter of hours. So just give you the power of AI. Yeah. But you have to be responsible. That's the main thing. Just what are the guide rails? What are the things you can do? But one comment, ultimately, I think it goes back to what kind of culture. I think you touched on this. What kind of culture you have? And one of the things we have done in our company is really focusing on a culture of experimentation and test and learn in a very empowered way. Because we did that, this particular example, OpenAI, actually one of our product teams kind of went and tested and learned and figured out a way to make it work, working with our cross-functional team. And I was not even fully aware they're doing it, right? So it's that kind of innovation with running like a startup environment with a big company is really what we CIOs can really drive.
So are you using have you used the public version to do this?
ChatGPT 3, a combination of public and also you have a private.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, so for us, again, we also leverage AI and machine learning in a big way because, again, in insurance, everything is based on data. It's like all about evaluating risk and doing that better. So anything that renders decisions that are much more data-driven with large amounts of data, whether our own internal and then third-party data, is critical. So we have an AI accelerator team, which has been tasked with not only looking at use cases, but also driving the ability of leveraging AI across all of our engineering organization, and then maybe ultimately now with generative AI, non-technology folks as well. So there are several things that we're doing. I would say we're thinking about it right now as, how do we augment the capabilities of our knowledge workers? And so, if you think about it, like companies have been struggling with leveraging the knowledge bases that they have, or as people leave, what do you do? I mean, engineers don't really document things that well, and so it's really that's where we're focused. So we've got a couple of things that right now we're have launched internally with our employees. It's with our claim professionals, where we have around 24 or so of their knowledge bases, where anything from as they come on board, onboarding them, and they have questions like, what is an FNOL? So from describing what that is to how do you do it, and what are the 8 steps and the things that you've got to keep in mind.
So it seems that in all 3 cases, a lot of this is about synthesizing information and sharing it with customers, or synthesizing information and using it internally to make people smarter. But to what extent do you see a potential to not just synthesize information, but to gain insight?
Yeah, I mean, I think of it as it's threefold. So one is, this is like the easier and it's high value. So, low-hanging fruit, high value. Of course, we're talking about large language model right now, right? When you say ChatGPT and OpenAI, I mean, there are many other types of generative AI. But as you're thinking of it, this is where we've started. But there are a couple of other things. Again, in the world of insurance, a lot of the interaction between us and our agents and brokers is via email. And believe it or not, like the number of documents that they embed in emails in order to get a quote is it's mind-boggling. So we've got dozens of people, if not hundreds, sitting and opening up these documents and scanning through them, seeing, getting the information that they need in order to provide the quote. And so another use case is the ability to leverage generative AI to do that for us. And so again, it's certainly beyond synthesizing. And then we do think that, we'll have to see, these are all guesses, but we've got to think about how is this going to impact all of us? I mean, are we all going to need as many engineers as we have? When you've got these machines, whether it's Microsoft Copilot or Amazon's Whisper or all of those things that generate code, which is pretty darn good based on what our people are telling us, are we going to need that?
It's a really great question. To what extent do the 3 of you expect AI, generative AI, ChatGPT in particular, to actually become competent enough so that you need fewer engineers or fewer writers or fewer people in general?
Well, we are experimenting in a number of areas, especially I'm really excited about the engineering side of it. Not because we're going to need less engineers, but I think we can make our engineers better and let them focus on things where they add most value. I haven't experienced this yet, but I've seen some stats in some of the experiments. We might get 30-40% productivity from engineer. I mean, all of us are struggling finding tech talent.
Sure.
And so if we can use generative AI technologies in a secured way and responsible way to generate code and get to do a lot of the knowledge worker jobs, that's going to free up our people and make our companies much more productive, and we can focus our energy to a high-value human task that we're capable of doing.
Subhadaa, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually feel like there'll be a shift, right? I mean, every time there is newer technology, there's this question of, okay, are the jobs going to get gone, and there's going to be less engineers, less of this, less of that, right? I always feel that it's a shift, right? When we originally had, say, the modeling concepts, the data modeling, and the concept of being able to run risk models or any kind of models for that reason, the whole idea was, oh, you bring in AI, then you're going to now take out many of those jobs, and the systems are going to do it for you. But there's somebody who is actually architecting how those models are going to look like, or engineering how those models are going to look like. So I find this an interesting question, because I find that as the shift is going to happen where, even if you take Copilot as an example, there's more engineers who have to spend their time to make Copilot the best Copilot that it can be, right? So there's like a shift in the jobs, if you might, from that standpoint. And when you're looking at companies who are trying to adopt these technologies, you start thinking about, how do I know I'm doing this well? So that's where you kind of start moving a little bit.
Is that where the role of the CIO or the tech leader or the architect begins to change again, to become maybe even more central or core to the business as the company needs more insight into just what do we do with this?
I think it goes back to, again, creating a culture in the company that's, where you have this mindset of experimentation and test and learn, because technology changes so fast. Not all the technology is going to be relevant for us, and it's not all of them going to drive the right type of business outcome. So if we organize our teams in such a way that they're able to experiment, try different things, quickly discard things that are not going to work, and really hone on the things that are going to have meaningful impact, then we're going to continue to innovate. And that's the role of this technology executive, because we can help by having, like even this conference, right? We're learning a lot. Guess what? I can bring back to my colleagues, and they can help influence the direction of the company. And that's a very powerful thing.
I spoke to a CIO at a Wall Street Journal event several months ago. We were talking about the same thing, ChatGPT, generative AI, what are you doing with it? Is this of interest to you? And he looked at me, he said, absolutely. And I said, well, what are you doing with it? And he said, performance reviews.
Amazing.
Job description.
That's amazing. Performance reviews.
Do you see more applications, visual applications coming down the pike?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we need to educate. Like, our goal is to, first of all, make sure we've got the right platform, because we definitely don't want our people to be putting everything in the public ChatGPT. So we don't want what happened to Samsung to happen to us. But we've got our own internal version, which of course is behind our firewall. And so educating our people and then opening it up to everyone to figure out what are those pedestrian use cases, where every single one of them, whether, if you're in communications, should every first draft start with ChatGPT, and then learning how to give the prompts the right way, because I think there is a skill around how do you ask the questions, how do you continue to refine it, and I think more and more of those will come, absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I want to go back to the point you started the panel off with, which was things are moving faster, or at least we're perceiving it to be. I think most people would perceive it to be. And so back to Sahin's point about somebody on your team a year and a half ago had the presence of mind to very early on see ChatGPT 3 and recognize its ability to transform the way that you curate reviews, right? Every day on LinkedIn, there's 30 new posts today on all of these cool new applications around generative AI platforms. There's a newsletter called There's an AI for That.
Yeah.
You may subscribe every week.
What was the question?
Yeah, so the question is, how do you now keep pace, right? So it's one thing for one person to find that. You're going to get hundreds of people every week coming to your office and saying, I just saw this amazing new use case, this amazing new application, this amazing new tool. How do you manage that inflow of innovative proposals?
Yeah, so that is where I think the critical thing there is not focusing on technology, right? Focusing more on the business outcome. So this particular team that went and figured out how to use ChatGPT, their business outcome goal was how to drive like SEO, search engine optimization ranking, and how do we drive better customer experience. So that was their goal, business outcome goal. Then we told them what, they figured out how to get it done. So this is one way they figured it out. So across the whole company, we have product teams doing experiments, they're trying different things. but they're really trying to achieve the business outcome goal. So as long as you focus on outcome, then technology, teams are very smart. They'll figure out different ways to get things done.
So are there any other questions from the audience? Anyone at all? So if anything comes to mind, just let us know. So 5 years from now, 6 years from now, how do you think your current role will look in retrospect?
Yeah, I'm not going to steal the answers that were given previously. How will it, I mean, I think it'll continue to, look, it's been years that we've been saying, IT is part of the business, needs to be part of the business, you need to be at the table. I think advents like the pandemic, where again, regardless of what people thought of the CIO role, without them and their organization, no one could have conducted their business, or in some cases, had to change everything and pivot and be able to do business. So I would say that I personally believe, I think this ChatGPT thing, I think generative AI is going to turn many things on its head, inclusive, by the way, of other types of AI, like NLP companies and so on. I think those guys need to be paying attention. So I think this is yet another one. And look, I think 5 years from now, I mean, the technology leaders will be, leading like the operations of a company. I mean, all of the operations, not just the IT operation, but the operations of an organization, like the core of it. I see the role evolve.
Yeah, I think, so the role for technology leader will continue to evolve. I mean, if I look at Mojgan, I've had the pleasure of knowing her for some, 17 years. But she's very unique, right? If you think about it this way, because there are not many technology leaders who have, expanded their roles. I mean, some are, they're leading CIOs and CTOs are doing that, but it's still a small percentage. So what I think was going to happen in 5 years, the company is going to demand it, that their technology leader is able to perform and be like a leader like Mojgan. So that's what's going to happen, I think. And not just influencing the business strategy, define the business strategy and help write the business strategy. That is the role of CIO going forward.
I also see that there's going to be a lot more transition of the technology leaders into the business organizations, right? And what I mean by that is not separating those, but operating as one voice. And we've seen this trend with some of the CIOs of the organizations moving and starting to run the business as the CEOs of the organizations. There's several great examples of these, right? So I kind of see that trend picking up a whole lot more.
As that happens, how do you think that not just the strategy, but the operating model begins to evolve?
Absolutely, right? Because you are trying to bring in a different, diverse thinking to the table, right? And I do feel like then technology becomes the center of the innovation versus just responding to some kind of business strategy at that point of time. And these leaders who are uniquely positioned, and Mojgan and both Shamim being examples of these, are able to bring that technology perspective and actually teach their peers as well to say, okay, how do you do this, being the epitome center of how your business is operating in a different way. So I think huge benefits there.
Yeah, one other thing I'm seeing more and more, which is encouraging also, if you think about board of directors in most large public companies, they are needing the expertise that we have. And because disruption for most companies are coming from technology.
Yeah.
Think about it. Most companies either have been disrupted or will be disrupted, right? So, and the disruption coming from technology. So you need a technology-savvy leader, business leader, who can sit at the board level and help influence the decision of the company. So I've been very fortunate to be on the board, and I know many of the folks might be on the board. So it's really, that's the transition I see also. The more skills of CIOs are needed and asked for in the very board level as well.
And you're right, like before it was always the CFO and CEOs that were considered.
Exactly.
Now many more CIOs, yeah.
What does the board want to know? What does it need to know? What does it ask?
Well, I mean, I think they want you, I mean, you've got much more hands-on experience, but they want you to certainly bring that expertise from a technology perspective, because they've got expertise when it comes to finance, when it comes to audit, when it comes to legal, to HR. So you bringing that, but then also, of course, being a business leader, a business leader who's done transformation or is,
Can you think of an instance in which you've really shifted the board's perception or its attitude?
Oh, well, so our board's perception or attitude. Well, look, in 2018, if you looked at the customer experience that we were providing, We had a 2.3 rating of our mobile app and so on. And so, over the past few years, that's changed now. We've got a 4.7 rating. So, before people would probably not even download the app, but now, and so that's completely changed. We've completely changed the customer experience and how we're viewed. So the perspective of the board in terms of how critical it is to continue to invest in technology, I would say, that this is one demonstration that, this absolutely pays off.
Yeah, I think, the two aspects.
Is there a particular instance where you think you've had the most impact on the business? And Subhadaa, I'll ask you the same.
Most impact in...
The most impact on the business, a particular project, feature.
Yeah, well, there's not one thing, right? I think the biggest impact and the biggest thing that I'm most proud of is shifting our company from a legacy brick and mortar market leader to a digital e-commerce company that's leading in our industry and disrupting our industry. So to me, that's a culmination of a lot of things: culture, the technology, the process, and how we work. I think that's summarizes what the biggest impact we had, or I had in my department or in my company.
Yeah, I'm personally proud of the cloud transformation that the organization has gone through, and I think the fact that we are using that as a propeller for us in driving agility in our business, I think is huge.
Cloud.
The cloud transformation is one of the things that I would look back and say, oh, that's something that we intentionally spent time on, and we were very, very intentional in what we want to do with cloud, not necessarily just doing it for the sake because everybody else is doing cloud.
So we talked about your proudest moment in influencing the business. Mojgan, what has been the greatest challenge in working with the business?
I would say probably prioritization and making sure everyone knows that, there are 1,000 things you can do at any given time, but doing a few things well and deeply probably pays off a whole lot more. And so, you're at the helm, you're at the center of where all of the requests come, and there's a pull on your resources. So that's probably figuring that out and making sure that you're really aligned with the business objectives and that you're all holding hands and that these aren't just IT's responsibilities. I think that's probably.
Yeah, I think early on, the biggest challenge I would say was really convincing everybody to be on this journey, because when you're a market leader, you're doing well 8-9 years ago, changing to go through massive disruption, inflict a lot of pain to go through this transformation. The change management aspect was probably the biggest thing originally, but now it's like how we do things. It became second nature. I think it's partly because having some senior level alignment, doing digital safari, and having some early wins. When teams saw that by working in a different way and by really working in a product kind of mindset and with experimentation and empowered way, we can get things better. We can get good things done quickly, and that got us a lot of momentum. And so we started with just a handful of product teams, and today, again, majority of the company runs that way. So it's just a success begets success.
Absolutely.
So your greatest challenge in working with the business?
I'd say the greatest challenge, at least over the many years, and there's several, right? I think is trying to have the business acknowledge that running the basic operations of IT is table stakes, and to be able to make sure that that understanding is there. And we talked a little bit earlier, I think some of the panels were talking about tech debt, right? To be able to bring the business along to say, okay, that is not something that you carry forever, right? And to be able to put capacity away and prioritize that in addition to all the phenomenal innovation that you want to do, I think is an important thing. So that, I think, comes with being able to educate what you don't get if you don't do that, right?
Final question, as all three of you work with such an expanding range of people in the business, do you run into difficulty establishing where everyone's responsibility begins and ends and the other person's responsibility begins and ends?
I think lines get blurry. So this is why the partnership becomes very, very important. So when I look at my COO and CMO, two of my other partners, we're joined at the hip. We talk multiple times a day, and the CEO is in the middle of all this too. So having the regular conversation and all going after common goals really makes a big difference, because roles and responsibility overlap all the time, and we have cross-functional teams that makes it even more challenging. But that if teams see we're aligned at senior level, guess what? They get aligned and they focus on the right things.
And I think it's also about defining the objectives in a way where everyone knows what you're going after and you're measured by the same objective. Again, And all the way down, by the way, all the way to the team level where the technologist and the product owner are going to get measured on the same impact on the business.
Yeah,
So
I think
there
I
are
have a unique position here based because I'm an architecture there. So there's almost like the lines are blurred very, very much because you are stepping over a little bit on the toes of your business team, your engineering team, your CIO organization. You're like, you have a lot of lines that you have to watch for, but at the same point of time, the way usually I think about this is when you are goal aligned and you have you assume positive intent, then you know that you're not necessarily stepping anybody's toes. You're really working together as a team for that common objective, right?
That is all the time we have. We'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.